Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
Welcome to Business Monday. It's a bi-weekly podcast on everything money, banking, economy, fintech, and everything business, literally, with your fave online banker. Every 2 weeks for now. We're starting this once every 2 weeks for now. Share insights, all the news stories that you hear about, but you're not sure how it affects you. Make the business numbers, the stats, and the news more about you. And we have Stanley Honora, popularly known as OnlineBanker. Hi, what's up?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good. We've been talking about this for a while, but thank God, finally, we're here.
Yeah, it's been coming. It's been coming. It's amazing, and I hope we have interesting times and conversations around this.
Yeah, and I hope that we keep this, say, to a weekly, or I don't know, maybe a weekly thing, depending on how this actually turns out, or how this turns out to be. But I hope that we can make it maybe a weekly thing, or something we can do much more often than just once in 2 weeks.
Well, let's see. Life gets busy, but you know how it is now. Work out something.
Sure. So let's just get straight up. First, student loan. Student loan has been a thing in Nigeria. The federal government said that it's working out modalities to begin student loan between September and October in 2023. This student loan law provides interest-free loans to indigent Nigerian students, and the students must apply to the chairman of the education bank through their respective institutions, and then ensure that whoever is applying, your income or the income of your family must be less than 500,000 naira per annum. Since when the student loan thing started trending, what are your thoughts about it? Is this really a thing? Will it affect Nigerian students? And just a few days ago, right, we also heard that the tuition fees for Unity schools and maybe public universities in Nigeria would be doing over 100% increase. So, Stan, what's your take on student loan?
All right. So my take on student loan, I think for the people that do not know, my name's Stanley. He introduced me, the online banker. I talk about things like this on my page, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Now, student loan, from what the government came out, the proposition of the government came out, it sounded like a novel idea. Sounded great on paper. That's just reading the headline. Students are going to get money that would ensure that the indigent students or your parents can. We live in a society where they say there's most poverty. So we have a lot of people within that bracket. So everyone's this is wonderful. A lot of people are going to have access to education that they didn't have and all. But when you go into the details, you start to see that it sounds like government fully for you to process the student loan. Are requirements that you need, that for you to have those requirements, you don't need a student loan. So in essence, and when it was proposed, I remember one or two journalists that came out and said bigger picture, which was increase in tuition fees, and I felt that was just propaganda. And eventually this came up. So now you have school fees increase, and they're telling you, you could get loans to fund the school fees. So in essence, it's connected in a way. So you have student loan, and now you are telling you increase tuition fees, and then you could get a loan for you to access this. And what are the requirements? They are saying you should get 2 guarantors, one person one has to be like a judge or someone above level 12 in the civil service. You need to get them to write. You need to get them to, write to the board confirming that they are going to be your guarantor and all that. That alone in itself, if I know a person, typical Nigerian, I'm going to use a typical Nigerian setting. So if you know a judge in Nigeria that has served for at least 15 or 20 years, you know that person to a great extent is above the middle class in Nigeria. And now you're going to come to him that your parents, and these are the people who are looking at, are people that, let's use the Nigerian parlance, maybe the father is a shoemaker, or the mother the mother probably is a housewife and the man is just barely fending. Because if you look at 500,000 annual income, break it down by 12, how much does it come up to? So it means that these people, all that you can get from the combined household is not up to 500,000. It means they are actually the poorest of the poor. Now, why should I guarantee that person's child's fees instead of just, making money available to them, when I know that is a potential case of default? Because what we are looking at is just, aside taking the loan, is repayment. So you are saying guarantee this loan if this person has the means of paying back in the near term. Or you are saying when the student then starts to work, you are going to come back. Nobody wants their name in future, especially for people you do not know, for you to go and start taking guarantees for them. And what happens if that student that you've gone to guarantee misbehaves or anything? You already then have you as guarantor, and you don't know this person well enough. Or because if you did know them well enough, you'll be able to afford probably that tuition that'll come up to like 20,000 or 30,000 monthly. Somebody within that cadre will be able to afford that for that student. So if you look at it really well, it's not something that is practicable. On paper, yes, but in practicality, no. So that's my own take on it.
Yeah, so what would you advise in terms of if the government is looking for a practicable way, say, okay, I want to give out these loans, but I also want assurance that these loans are going to be repaid so that we don't have bad debt, that, goes into trillions of naira, to ensure that we offset the funds for educating Nigerians that do not have the funds to educate themselves.
So if you are going to do that, now it becomes, you have to look at generally, for loans in this nature, a percentage of default. That's number one thing that you do, but you never disclose it because of the class of people you are trying to help. So if the government is sincere and say, we want to disburse these loans to Nigerians in the format they are going to repay and all, I think personally the means that I would use would be probably have banks to vet the people, or probably use like religious organizations. It's honestly, when thinking of it broader now, it's going to be difficult. Like a practical working step, probably using, say, the religious organizations like churches and all, and holding them accountable. People can then start to, favor the people that are close to them. Then if we're to use local governments are non-existent in Nigeria. And the system that if you try to make it a bit more stringent like they have now, the people that is supposed to hit would not get it. I would still leave it down to the private sector because I will know they will probably do a better job. And what will be my private sector part? What's in my private sector? Use the banks that I've worked in the bank and how we vet people for loans. So you come around, go to your bank and say, I have so and so school that I've applied for and all. And then probably you have somebody at that loan desk that is doing that vetting. So you submit your WAEC certificates, submit all those documents. Once you are admitted, you provide all those things and drop it as partly like collateral in the bank. Like you drop your WAEC certificate, drop your school leaving certificate, all those things. Because you will not get any job without those certificates, the original of those certificates. So at least that bank is going to be held in the sense that the money is going to pass through them. So it reports on their balance sheet as money that they've received from government. Those people open accounts with those banks. So if whether it's an existing bank or whether it's an existing bank account or a new relationship, so you have like a staff that has been assigned to maybe that room, one or two staff that handle that in the branch, and there are so many branches of different banks across. So once you have that, you can notice that there will be a lot of merit system that will be applied to it. So I'm taking all this your document, so we have a vault to keep it, registering this as your collateral, and then when you're in how many years when you start to repay, or you can get a guarantor from so and so person to sign for you. When you start to repay, you can't get any job. After your NYSC, you bring your NYSC certificate to come and verify, and your NYSC certificate is taken from you too. If not, you'll be able to access this. That way, that for you to then get a job, you need to start making repayment because you need original documents back. So that kind of works in a way because it's a soft collateral, but it's really it's really personal documents that every individual will still need. You won't say because of 300,000 or 500,000, I'm going to abandon my certificate that I will have used for life. So that way, it will be more merit based from my own angle, and I think more effective.
Okay, so just so everyone knows, this is not the idea of student loan is not something that was just introduced, or this is the first time it's ever happening, because I know that for students who study abroad, there is some form of provision for them to get some form of loans. But then it's not exactly been done by the federal government in this manner before. OnlineBanker, can you confirm that?
Yeah, yes, there's been student loans before. Are you talking of the ones in Nigeria or outside Nigeria?
Oh, so I know there are some loan, will I call them companies, yes, that have provisions for student loans here in Nigeria.
Yes, they do. They have some loan companies that have, but mostly tailored towards private. Even some commercial banks have specialized products for loans for students.
I know, I've heard of that. Okay, the Central Bank of Nigeria just recently also directed deposit money banks to remove the rate cap on the naira at the investors and exporters window of the foreign exchange market. According to CBN, this will allow for a free float of the national currency against the dollar and other global currencies like the pound. What consequences have we witnessed because of this, and what's the relationship between this and the Forex supply reforms that are going on currently in Nigeria, and what the exchange rates say right now?
Okay, the floating of the naira has been something that's been long overdue. I emphatically still blame the last administration for everything that is happening right now in Nigeria. I put so much blame on the last administration. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I do not belong to any political party. I'm not affiliated to anyone, but the last administration was a disaster. They had the goodwill, they were timed perfectly for it. They had the goodwill of the people. Everything was just in their favor to take off properly. And then they just plunged into this. I'll narrate this for you. I'll narrate this for everyone. I'll use this analogy. So it's like you are trying to take off. Imagine a helicopter or like a plane trying to take off, and then it's taxiing. You know how planes go? They go back, and they'll take this runway, and they run for a bit, then before they take off. Imagine that the last administration had a perfect runway, like the Abuja airport or the Lagos airport. Then it was perfect for everybody. Any plane could land there internationally, like it's a proper airport. That's what they had. And now, instead of them to have taken off, they just used the whole runway to just move and taxi. They're just moving slowly. And then when it got to like a swampy spot where you are not sure where the tarmac of the airport of the runway was built on water, and it's not even like it's not solid, like anything could happen. The one that is uncertain, that's when they now decided to start running to take off. That is exactly what they did, plunging Nigeria into the position that we are now. That said, the floating of the naira is something that must have happened. Why the government took that approach, irrespective of what everybody has felt, the public outcry, is that if they didn't do that, foreign capital into Nigeria would dry up permanently is what I said, and Nigeria was going to default on its loans. And once Nigeria defaults on their loans, it's not the problem we'll have will be bigger than the issues we have now. Once we default on our loans, it means that our current loan portfolio of over 88 trillion naira, most of them in foreign debt, that the country holds, the creditors are going to now start to demand extra measures for security. So I'll use this as an example again for everyone so that everyone will understand. When I give money to you, so you come and take 100,000 from me, and you're making repayments every month, you're supposed to pay me 10,000 naira, and you're always making that 10,000. When I'm seeing that you are a bit in distress and you're telling me don't worry, your repayment, I'm saying okay, no wahala, there's no. need anything extra from you. Now you're already making your repayments. I'm relaxed. But immediately you default once, you see a whole online banker is defaulting of 10,000 naira. There's a bigger problem. Now, I'm not just indebted to you, I'm indebted to a number of people. Once the stress sends that default, everybody tells you, okay, you know what? I'm sensing that this might continue, or that this is never happened though. So what are the measures that we can put in? You know what? Pay me back this money in less time, and can you give me something to hold on to just in case? Because I know it's not only me you are holding. Can you just give me give me the particulars of that one of those your cars? Just give me, your Corolla. Let me hold the Corolla car. You see, and that bank comes and tells you, you know what? I'm not sure of your future again, no. So just in case you default, and that person comes and tells you, you know, I want the refinery. So that way, it starts to put pressure on the country because you're already on the path of default. So we use a typical example like Ghana. When Ghana defaulted on their loans, so now their credit rating had dropped. So for them to get any money from anybody, the interest rate should have been charged has doubled. So if you're getting 10%, every other person that wants to borrow you a high risk, they're saying, I'm not sure, so I'm going to price you highly so that in case anything happens, I'm sure that even the money that I'll take from you for the first few months are going to cover me. So now your interest rate goes up to like 20 or 30 or 20% for a country that is borrowing like billions of dollars. So that's on one side. Once your credit rating has dropped, people are not even ready to even lend to you, and governments continually need money. You are not no government is self-sufficient. The US is one of the biggest borrowers of money in the world for infrastructure and other needs. So as you now default on your loan, then the fresh loan that you are supposed to get, you don't get because international lenders are looking at you. So Nigeria needed to float. What it did was that there were so many companies that we need to repatriate money, and they are saying we can't take our money from Nigeria. It seems Nigeria is having a problem, or we can't do business with Nigeria because the exchange rates that we're getting when we're trying to get our money, the CBN is telling us the naira is at 400 naira when the black market is saying it's 700 naira. So that disparity was causing a lot of problems for businesses. So that floating was something that should have happened. Why I was claiming it should have happened way earlier is that if it had happened, say 4 or 5 years ago, by now we'll have been reaping the benefits, because the benefits come after a while, because it opens up your economy to more businesses, more investors, and it helps your own local businesses to liberalize and all that. Now, the effect, as if the effect of devaluation is evident in everything, one of which is petrol, and Nigeria deregulated the petroleum downstream immediately that they unpegged the naira from the CBN and floated the naira. Now that was a good idea, but the timing. Now as they removed the subsidy, what they said was that market forces control everything. You are doing that at the time when your country's currency has been floated, and not that you have a lot of exports that you're exporting, or that your production of oil and all other indices are good. The currency started going up, and invariably it's affected petrol. Now petrol is selling for 620 naira 30 some places, and might go up as the naira goes up, because as the naira goes up, the importers need to buy dollars, and as whatever rate they buy dollar, they will have to adjust the pump price to reflect the price that they get the product into Nigeria. Now petrol controls everything, controls transportation. And for everyone that controls transportation and energy. Now, a lot of Nigerians depend on generators to run their businesses. A lot of Nigerians depend on transportation by vehicles. Unlike in other countries where you have like state-owned buses, public transport in form of like rails and buses. Nigeria is solely dependent on mostly private-owned businesses that run commercial services, commercial transport, and they all mostly use petrol. If they're not using petrol, they're using diesel, which are still priced around the same amount. Diesel is even higher. So what you're seeing is that there's a ripple effect, and it's causing inflation, and that inflation cannot be tamed, because the food, which is the greatest inflationary product in Nigeria, that is rising, is due to insecurity, and the government has not even addressed insecurity from the last administration that allowed everything to go balloon. Now you have pressure from inflation from food that they are trying to look at. You have the pressure on every other product that had doubled, that's simply doubling because of the price of petrol and the resultant multiplier effect of the economy. So dollar floating, the government has to survive, but in doing that, the people are then feeling the brunt of it. So it's a quagmire at the moment, and it's going to take a lot of sincerity that Nigerians have not seen from any government, because you cannot continue business as usual or tell the people you need to bear with us when they are looking at you and they're not seeing austerity measures that you're taking. So it requires a lot of sincerity from the government, not just lip service for them to come through.
Okay, so let's relate this to the news that broke just recently also, that Nigerians can now pay for dollar transactions with their Naira card based on information that was published recently. Say a year ago, banks started limiting the payment with Naira cards and said if you want to make payments, you'd have to use your dollar card. But just recently, the central bank issued that, and some banks have already started making it possible for Nigerians to pay for dollar transactions with Naira card. What does this mean, and how will this affect businesses that actually make these payments, or people that just buy things that are in foreign currency?
Okay, so the cards, like I said, mainly the dollar. I think the first video that I made, that went viral about the floating of that, one of the major things that I said is that your Naira card will soon start to work. And it's only common sense, because immediately the banks are allowed to source the dollars at their rate, not waiting for the CBN rate to fulfill the payment, because the problem they had was repatriation of money. So if you get cards, if you try to buy something from America, from Europe, how do you transfer? Because you're buying in Naira, and these banks are going to settle those people in either dollars, euros, or pound sterling, depending on whichever country that you are purchasing those things from. Or if it's from China, from the yuan, they're going to purchase those things in that currency. And what do? They buy dollars and settle. So dollar being the world reserve currency, so they buy dollars and settle those people, do the conversion and settle them. But because the CBN was pegging at 456 naira or 465 naira, I don't know what the last figure before it was floated. Now they had a problem where when they go to source money, because they're going to the CBN to source for dollars to make this payment. When they go back to CBN and they are going to say, oh, this so and so person, Mr. Stanley bought like 3 phone pouches from AliExpress. In the total of everything he bought is like $120. And then they are saying, okay, give us $120 for Stanley and a number of our customers, in totaling 12 million the past 2 months. So, and that people have purchased the past few months. What are we then going to? Okay, maybe announce. I need the banks now. Do you want us to give you $12 million, 400? When the black market is at 700 and something naira, it became a problem, because that was just my own spending. That's why they stopped cards for personal cards working. That's just my own spending. The major spending that then impacted the people on a macro level, things like importation of fuel, importation of flour, that's flour companies for us to have bread to eat, those essentials, importation of wheat, importation of oil, importation of red oil, everything those things that they need to produce goods and services that affect everyone on a macro level, like you and I. Because if you just imagine that importers that are importing wheat are not able to import wheat into Nigeria, it means that bread will not be available. And if bread is available, it will go to the price of maybe like 2,000 for a loaf or 3,000 naira for a loaf. Imagine that scenario. Imagine what it will cost for the whole of Nigeria. So for those kind of people, you need to make provisions for them, as against you and I that just want to buy phone pouch or pay for Apple service. You don't pay for Apple service, you don't go die now. But if you know your bread, you will die. So that is actually a part of why most of those cards were restricted. But now that you see that the banks are going to buy an IPO, it means that if they go there and source it at 120 naira, 1,020 naira, or 900 naira, they can come to you and say, would you pay 960 naira for this? And all you just want is access, irrespective of the amount. And if you don't want it, then it's fine. So that's why they are able to do this now. And let me add this, please. There was something the CBN came out, the OTC FX settled contract. That's the forward contract by the CBN. That they said, okay, you can lock in an amount. You can quote that you're going to repatriate your money at $1, and it's locked in. Once it's locked in at that amount, whether the naira falls to 200 naira, you agree to 1,000 naira, or whether the naira becomes 5,000 naira to $1, you agree to 1,000 naira, and it's a guarantee sum. That has helped in this card liberalization. What it did is that the banks can go to CBN and say, we want to purchase $100 million, or somebody can say, somebody's bringing in $100 million into Nigeria, and we're going to use it to settle our cards, the problems that we have for cards repayment. And this $100 million, this person is going to take it. We're converting it to naira. And when the person is taking this $100 million, he's going to take it at 1,000 naira. And the CBN agrees. Okay, what date is it taking? It's 2025, January 2nd, 2025, and it's agreed. It's easier for people to bring in their $500 million, and then the banks can take that money and then use it to make settlements. Then on your part, because they've already agreed on 1,000 naira, the banks now know that whatever I'm going to charge you, Mr. X, or charge me, Mr. Stanley, I'm going to then charge it plus my own markup from everything, because I know I'm going to repay this money at 1,000. It's the guarantee it's up for me. So I can then charge you 1,500 naira or 1,200 naira for each transaction you make on your card. And because I know this is my cost, and then plus the profit. So that way, this has made it available, and I expect more Nigerian cards to start to work. By the way, Sterling and Wema have publicly come out to say this. People said they are using their G cards to make payments already. So I know that with time, most of the cards will come on board.
Okay, thank you. For people does this have anything to do with people who receive money from friends and family members who are outside, the country?
For remittances, remittances don't affect your cards, but they help the country. Because remittances is like a different conversation. I don't even want us to talk about it, but let's go on.
Okay, so I think this is where I'd want us to take a break for this particular one. We would, in the next episode, maybe try to do a little bit of breakdown on what, I heard us talk about foreign exchange, how the exchange itself happens, how countries exchange money, and that's how that affects, individuals, like the individual persons involved in it, Okay. And also, in the second episode, I'd want us to talk about the new taxes that have been introduced in the informal sector, and some new taxes we hear are coming also for some certain goods like plastics and whatnot. And then maybe we would also dedicate the next episode to fuel subsidy and how that is affecting and would or may affect businesses in Nigeria. Yeah?
That's fantastic then.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, everyone. This episode is going to be available across streaming platforms, all popular streaming platforms, from Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the rest. And then we'll continue to break down business indices, statistics, everything that you hear in the business news. Try to help you make sense of it. Thank you very much, OnlineBanker, for this episode. This is the first episode. Okay, so I'm happy that we dealt on these issues, and I look forward to much more engaging conversations in the episodes to come.
All right, that's fine. And then I would like to add that the people that would listen can send in questions, so that if we have other things that they are interested in, we could touch on it briefly, so that it's more engaging.
Yes, so you can send in your questions to mail OnlineBanker. Should we use that one? Mail OnlineBanker at gmail.com. Yes.
Mail OnlineBanker at gmail.com.
Yes, and you can also send in questions to africatechradio at gmail.com. Any of both would be great. And we're going to treat your questions and we'll help you better understand the business space in Nigeria. Thank you very much. OnlineBanker, any final thoughts from your end before we close up from this episode?
Yeah, well, while everybody's seeing Shege in Nigeria, please, just keep faith and everything will adjust with time. Do the most you can.
Thank you very much for the reassuring words. And I just wanted to point out, you mentioned the former administration. Just to put it in context, the former administration in Nigeria is the Buhari administration, because Buhari is the Buhari administration, the immediate past president, and the current administration, where all of these policies that we're discussing currently under is the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. Thank you. We'll see you again next week or in 2 weeks, depending on what we decide happens with the next episode of this podcast.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.